Hey YouTube, welcome back to another edition of Cycle QMX. I'm your host, Ryan Wood, and we have been in lockdown. I'm assuming you have been as well. And during this time, I've ordered up some new parts for my downhill bike. Since most of the parks have now been closed, getting a lift to the top of the mountain is pretty much out of the question. So I've added the motor back on to my downhill bike. This is a 3,000 watt 72 volt brushless motor. Let's go ahead and check that out. So you can see I've kind of mid-mounted it right in here. I've also upgraded our braking system. So we've added some Tektro 180 millimeter disc brakes to the rear. Now this whole rear setup, you could tell already, is a lot smaller tire diameter than usual. And this is what came with the rear axle, which I ordered off of Amazon, and I can put some links in the description below to the axle setup I bought. It's 4 ATVs that are electric for, I think, little kids or something like that. But basically, typically, they would mount on the outside, and I moved the whole assembly to the inside so that I can have the chain running on the inside. Now, I've also tucked the controller up underneath here. You can see underneath my seat. And I've also ordered these 3D printed battery casings, so your Bosch batteries can now slide right in. Pretty sweet. And I'll leave a link in the description below. I think it's called Terrafirm or something like that. They basically 3D printed them, and they make them for a couple different brands. I run the Bosch 18 volts. This whole system, I run 4 of them, is 72 volts. So we're running 72 volts on this system. Now, I'm pretty much almost done. All I have to do is clean up some of this wiring here that I have sitting loose, but everything is connected, and right here is the power on-off switch, which I don't know why companies do this, but you know, most scooter companies, I'm assuming that you're going to put it somewhere that is up front, and it's okay if you leave the key on it. Now, where I have the key down here is probably not going to work out too well. I may end up just snapping it off or losing it. So I may just switch that key ignition lock system over to just a regular button, since this is a race bike and I'm not really planning on leaving it anywhere per se. That being said, 3,000 watts, 72 volts. I made this as light as possible. We are running a 3-link suspension system, so we have dual coil over shocks, and then I've run these trailing arms here. We have trailing arms to this 3rd linkage in the back right here. And sorry, I got some fiberglass in my eye, but here's the trailing arm linkage. You could see. So here's the trailing linkage arm, and these are the trailing arms, and then I've welded all this. Now right now out here on the farm, I don't have my TIG welder set up, so what I am running is the Hobart. Let me get you over to that. The Hobart Handler 190 230 volt wire feed welder. Right now I got set up to about 60 amps, which welds most of the stuff that I need pretty well. I am able to run that off a generator or solar or whatever power supply we may have at the time. Now, all that being said, I don't have much editing set up, so currently we'll be vlogging this, and I'll try to get back to my regularly scheduled weekly reports. I know you are probably all dying to see this beast run. So am I. I actually fired it up. Let's go ahead and launch that for you right now. Let's see if I can set you down. Here, I'll just hold on to you. Sorry about that. We're just going to go straight. So typically the batteries would line up right in here. Actually, we can't launch it right now. I am charging some of the batteries since we had already been doing some testing. The motor is spec'd to run at 5,400 RPMs at 72 volts. I am running the 8mm chain on this. Typically we run a number 40 chain. which is quite a bit heavier duty, closer to a motorcycle chain. This is going to be closer to a scooter or electric scooter or small motorbike. 50cc motorbikes, normally what they would put this chain on. So this whole setup is based upon a 50cc power ratio. The 3000 watt is pretty close to a 50cc. Now some pit bikes for the adults go up to about 70 cc's, but this bike is pretty light overall. I'm going to try to keep it as light as possible, so that's why we went with this brushless motor. I am doing chain drive instead of a hub motor so we can keep it light and keep the center of gravity and weight distribution in the center, so that I don't have a front end or back end heavy bike, which I was having problems with before. Either the front end was diving or the back end was diving. I had recentered my seat to get a better center of gravity forward and back, and since I took the motor off, it was pretty well set. But after that, it kind of, now that I've added the motor back in, I've added the batteries back in, and the brain, of course, it all added more weight to the back end. Now, to reduce that, the front end was always kind of heavy. I recentered the seat again to make that all work out. Now, what I also did was, I don't know if you could see this. Let me see how close I can get. Or maybe I'll just pull the plug. Hold on a second. Stand by. We're going to pull the plug. I tucked the plug up here underneath so that we don't lose it. But what I did want to show you is that I added these pretty sweet anti-spark plugs. I will also put them in the description below. So this first little green part, you barely put it in, and it has a resistor built into that. So typically when you connect your high voltage, high ampage batteries, you may get a slight spark, which over time can basically break down your connector plug. And the reason why it does this is because the speed controller basically is absorbing some of that energy as soon as you connect it, and it wants to suck it up, and that instant connection is like a snap. Some people will use a fuse connector, so basically you connect your battery first and then you flip the switch of the fuse and use the fuse as your hard connection, but over time that fuse itself will also be broken down. Every time you do that, you're going to ruin that connection, most likely a brass connection, and over time it's going to corrode and erode. Now this will eventually do the same, but it is gold plated inside there, and these connectors are rated for quadcopters up to 90 amps. I hope I'm not pulling that many amps on here, but it is rated up to 90 amps. We are running 10 gauge wire as short as possible from the battery to the controller. I'm hoping the controller doesn't get too hot underneath here, but this is where I've laid it out for now. Now, if you have any more questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below, but stand by. Let me grab the brake. I will go ahead and fire this thing up for you because I know you're dying to see it run just as much as I am. So I'm going to go grab 2 more batteries and we'll go ahead and fire this up. Stay tuned. All right, once again, to keep you posted, these are 18 volt, see if we get the camera to focus, 18 volt, 6 amp hour batteries, and I'm going to run 4 of these. So I'll go ahead and show you how those clip in. It's pretty sweet, they just slide right in. Boom. Boom. And then once we have those connected, everything's tied in, then we run our anti-spark gold-plated connector. And you just push it in slightly and then go all the way. And then if you guys are ready, I'm gonna go ahead and fire this bad boy up. So here's the key, power on. Now, is Amazon special. It is in Japanese, I believe, or Chinese glyphs, but no problem because it's only a couple buttons. It does typically have 3-speed, 1, 2, 3, high speed, low, but I've tied in this special white cable here, which is called a booster cable. Otherwise, you have like a slow, gentle start. If you were to pull the throttle really hard, it doesn't want to overload the circuitry, so it has an easy on throttle. For race purposes, I don't want that. Give me all the power instantly, even if I blow something up. So by connecting this white wire on this particular system, it overrides that. What it also overrides is the high-speed low system, so you're basically full throttle the whole time. Now, I haven't tied all this up yet. I just want to give you guys a presentation this week because we will be returning to regularly scheduled programs, so please like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. Share with your friends. We will be continuing with the carnage of running this bad boy out in the desert. I have set up some jumps. I have set up some turns. It is going to be exciting. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and fire this thing up. We do have it plugged in. I'm just going to pull these aside, make sure nothing is touching. Ready? Ooh, we got power. That's about 5,400 RPMs right there. Nice. All right, YouTube. That's all you're going to get for today. Just listen to that bad boy run. It's going to be smoking. All right, YouTube. Until next time, stay tuned. Peace.